Hey guys, this is Arsham and today we are going to talk about the Nftables and why Nftables is being created. So the big differences between the Nftables and the iptables is that iptables had some issues. Well, today's modern programming, you know about Python, many people are out there doing automation stuff. They, write a code with Python and they would just implement it on the Linux kernel so the OS knows how to put the rules in the kernel itself. So like Nftables could actually filter a packet or do some NAT or whatever it is. But with the old iptables, you couldn't do such a thing, and problem was there. Well, the Nftables, is actually compatible with the Linux kernel version 3 and more. And they say it's the main difference is that you use the nft command instead of the old iptables. And there are some big problems as well. For example, they say the main differences between the Nftables and the iptables. Well, one of the greatest problems that we've been facing with the iptables was the chains. So, for example, you've been working with the input chain and you've been filtering a packet. But the fact is, if you wanted to make all other packets to being accepted and being forwarded, you should also use other chains as well. And what it basically means is that all chains are working even if you just want to work with one chain at the same time. So it doesn't really make sense, does it? So it has a big cost, and that is the performance problem. Well, there are other stuff as well. For example, the iptables, if you were about to use the IP version 6, you would have to say IP6 tables and the command would be completely different. But the Nftables, well, they're all the same under the same nft command. And there are other differences as well as telling you. For example, tables and chains are fully configurable, and they say a single nftable rule can take multiple actions. And what it basically means, they say iptables has multiple predefined tables and base chains, all of which are registered even if you only need one of them. So that's a great problem. There have been reports of unused base chains harming performance. So that's a great problem, isn't it? So with all of that stuff, and you can also read this article if you want to know more about the Nftables. We're going to use Nftables today, and our specific scenario is on the VMware workstation. So we've got a DB router, which is our Linux machine, and we've been installing the Nftables with the command apt-get install Nftables. And because it's installed, I'm not going to show you. And I say rpm qa the grep to the Nftables. And our client machine, which is another Ubuntu machine, and with the IP address of 192.168.100.199, we're going to make this DB router act as a Linux router. So first of all, we've got to change something. That is a file on proc sys on net, then the IPv4. So the IP/forward, and the end result is the number 1. If the numbers of the IP forward file is number 0, it means that your machine is not going to act as a router. And there's another file that you can actually persist this config even if you reboot your OS, and that is vim itsy sysconfig, I guess. I don't really recall, or syscpl. Well, I guess it's sysconfig. Okay, the file is under vim etc sysctl.conf, and make sure that this line net.ipv4.ip4, it was first commented, and you have to uncomment the line and put the number into 1. So even if you restart your machine, it's going to act as a router still. So, well, that's for it. And let's get to the Nftables. So Nftables by default got some chains and tables. By default, there's no tables actually. You can actually create one, and it's quite simple with the command of nft add table, and you could name it whatever you want. For example, inet. They say nft add table filter, you could say, INET is predefined, so you can't actually use it. So for now, we're going to test our SSH connectivity for this machine, and we're going to see that if SSH works, and if it works, we're going to stop letting the Windows client to SSH through our Linux machine. So the IP address of the Linux machine which my Windows client can actually connect to this machine is 192.168.100.180. So let's try to SSH to our Linux machine. 192.168.100. And you can see that this Windows client is actually able to do SSH to our Linux machine. And let's stop this bad boy from doing some SSH stuff. Well, like iptables, NFT has some tables in it, and under tables are some chains, and under chains are some rules. But first of all, we have to create a table, and that's pretty simple. NFT add table. The name could be, INET filter, for example. And under table, we have to create a chain, specifically the input chain. So NFT add chain, and here's things get a bit complicated. You specify the chain, and after chain, you have to name your table which was being created. So the name INET filter, the NFT add chain INET filter, and I'm sorry, it's a bit mistake. NFT add chain INET filter, and on the chain input, the type is filter, and the hooks input, so small input, and the priority. It's very important to specify the priority, because your chain could be the first chain or could be the second chain, and that's by specifying the priority option. So 0, and where is it? There you go. And the policy is accept. So now we have to add a rule. The NFT add rule, and again, we have to tell the Linux machine what the chain name is. I mean, the first is the table and then is the chain. So INET filter is our table name, filter. NFT add rule INET filter means, hey NFT, I'm going to add a rule under the INET filter table, and under the chain input, okay, the TCP destination port 22, drop the connection. So now let's try again and see if our Windows machine is being able to SSH to the Linux machine. So now you can see that it no more can SSH for our Linux. And well, NFT list rule set, you can see what you've been writing under the NFT command, and under the table INET filter, there is a chain named input, and there is a rule TCP destination port 22 being dropped. So how I'm going to delete this rule and make my Windows machine being able to SSH through my Linux machine again. So that's still pretty simple. NFT delete rule under the table INET filter, the chain input, and the handle. Okay, we need the handle number. So the handle number NFT-A list rule set is going to tell you the handle numbers, and that's how you can actually delete a rule. So NFT delete rule under the table INET filter, the chain input, and the handle number of 2. There you go. Now we have to be able to SSH to the machine again. There you go. Now we can SSH to the machine again. So, well, that's all about the basics of the Nftables, but we have to make sure that whatever we've been configuring under the NFT, it is persistent. So if I restart my Linux machine, I have to be able to SSH to my Linux machine again. So I have to make things persistent. And that's pretty simple. Well, you could write NFT, these rule sets, okay, and copy all the data under the NFT list rule set to the Etsy nftables.com. Well, that was all about the basics of Nftables. Follow me for more videos about the Nftables.